I just want to celebrate another day of living. I just want to celebrate another episode of the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog. Welcome back or welcome in if this is your first time with us. And yes, it is truly a celebration. Officially, we have arrived at kickoff week. Happy college football season to one and to one and all. I am your most gracious host, representing the black and gold of the Iowa Hawkeyes, Blair Parks. Unfortunately, my usual co-host, who represents the black and gold of the Missouri Tigers, he still is the living, breathing, walking Venus de Milo, Charlie Oswalt, will be away for a few more weeks. He is taking care of a family issue, but he will be back sooner than later. Until then, he still is my sidekick. He is the Jake to my Elwood. He still is the Smokey to my Bandit and the Bruce to my Springsteen. Today we have a great show lined up for you, and I know I say this every week, but I think this will be the best episode ever. Hopefully. And I am so pumped up, as you can tell by popular demand. I have my game day hair back. I'm feeling good. I'm looking good. I am ready for some college football this week. And ooh, there's so much to get to. This week, what's on tap for this episode? We actually have an extended episode today. So bear with me, stay here with us. You don't want to miss anything. There is a lot to cover. This is the accumulation, the climax of everything in the off season leading up to right now kickoff. We have 7 topics today to cover with you. First, as normal out of the gate, we will have updated storylines and headlines. This week there is very few of those, so that should not take too long. We also have a week 0 review. Over the past weekend, we did have some football games, and we need to talk about a few of those, but specifically one. After that, we have a brand new segment that's going to be premiering for you today. I was not planning on doing this segment until next week, because if you've been with us for the previous episodes, you know that starting next week, we double the fun, double the pleasure here with the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog, because we have not 1, but 2 episodes coming right at you next week. Early in the week, we will have the weekend review of the games that happened, and then in the second half of the week, we will have the upcoming weekend review to tell you a look at the games that are on the slate for that week. So, this new segment today, and like I said, I was not planning on premiering this until next week, but a certain team definitely presented the opportunity for me to go ahead and share this with you today. Nebraska. So, the segment today, because of the opportunity arose, is called Atonement, and that will be very enjoyable, and it will be something very familiar to a lot of you who are watching, especially you HBO fans. Following the Atonement segment, then we move into our predictions, and that is the episode title for today, Predictions, Predictions, Predictions. The first predictions that I will share with you, and I do have also Charlie's predictions with me, so I will, on his behalf, share those with you as well. We will move into our conference predictions. Who will win this division, that division? Who will win against the other team in the conference championship game? After doing our conference predictions, then I will share with you our Heisman Trophy winners. Previously, we did share with you, I believe in episode 1 or 2, actually in both, we did share with you who our Heisman finalists were projected to be. So I will share with you today who we see taking home the hardware. After the Heisman Trophy winner, then we will move into, I believe, our first Pick'em segment of the year. And what I have done, I have put together 15 games. And each and every week, Charlie and I will pick these 15 games just straight up. We're not playing the line. That is way too difficult and a little bit too in-depth for our liking. Remember, this is for hobby. This is for enjoyment, what we do, what we share with you, our black and gold family. So we'll have our first Pick'em segment because week 1 is here. Following our Pick'em, then we will move into our playoff predictions. And also, along with those conference predictions, I will also share with you some non-Power 5 teams that you need to be made aware of who I anticipate can make a little bit of noise this upcoming season, and some independents also. So we have a lot to cover. So let's go ahead and get right into it, shall we? Storylines and headlines this week. The first thing I would like to share with you is earlier this week and over the weekend, Hurricane Ida did hit the Gulf Coast. Thoughts and prayers are to with everybody who was affected in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Texas. We're thinking of you, and hopefully you'll rebound and get back on your feet better than you were sooner than later. So thoughts and prayers, much love to you, Hurricane Ida victims. Now, let's go into the Pac-12. A hot topic, a previously shared storyline headline with you was expansion. Last week, it was anticipated that the Pac-12 would announce what their stance is on potential expansion. Because right now, the Big 12 conference with Oklahoma and Texas leaving to the SEC sooner than later has still kind of left them in limbo as I wiggle and jiggle more. So we are still waiting to see, hurry up and wait, as they would say in the services, what's going to happen with the Big 12. The Pac-12 did state this week officially that at this time, expansion is not going to be taking place. There were rumors that the Pac-12 was maybe looking to add some of those Big 12 teams, but as of now, not going to happen. Now, that doesn't mean in the future that's something that might be revisited. Just at this time, they are not looking to expand. So the next headline goes right into Big 12 expansion. We are still waiting to see what will happen with the conference, but it was reported this week through several media outlets, experts, and those who are in the know, which I am absolutely not. I am just sharing with you what I have read and what I've heard, that BYU is strongly being considered to join the Pac-12 to be in, or the Big 12, excuse me. So the expectation, and we are assuming they will be invited at some point to join the Big 12 conference. I think that is a very excellent addition for the Big 12. I think it brings them a team that has some moxie, that has some history, and a very solid fan base that does love their athletics and their college football. What I would like to see happen, and Charlie and I, we did want to share this with you, but there's so many scenarios, so many things that could happen, but this is what I believe should happen. We both believed, and we told you this, that we believe the Big 12 should not disband. They should stay around, especially with the coming playoff expansion. If you are a Power 5 conference, which they still will be, they will keep that title. You are guaranteed a spot at the table. No longer will you be, relegated to the kids' table. You'll be at the big boy adult table. So what I believe that the Big 12 should do is add 3 more teams. You're potentially looking to add BYU. Then I think you add the best of the rest from the non-Power 5. Definitely reach out to UCF. That gets you an excellent fan base, a team that has history, and it gives you an Orlando, Florida market for eyes and revenue. UCF they should add. Also ask Cincinnati, who is the highest ranked right now in the AP poll, non-Power 5 team. It gets you into the great state of Ohio, which we all know has such a pedigree of great football talent and history. Cincinnati should join you. I also believe then the last invite is you should ask Houston, which Houston also has a very good pedigree. They have a history, and plus they are right there in Houston, in Texas, the Texas market, which we all know things are always bigger in Texas. And I believe Houston is the 4th or 5th largest city in the nation. So the eyeballs and the revenue, and plus it makes total sense with you have the other teams in the Big 12 in the state of Texas with Baylor, TCU, and Texas Tech. So that is what I believe they should do, is add those 3 teams plus BYU. You still at that point have a very legit conference moving forward. So that's the news out of the Big 12. Our last storyline headline for today is now the COVID policy, because unfortunately it's something, this is not a stretch. I definitely believe we will have some games that are canceled due to COVID-19. I don't think as many as last season, but finally we know now what the policy will be for the Power 5 teams moving forward. Up until this week, the SEC had not made it public with what their policy would be in case games were canceled due to COVID-19. But the SEC did announce today, and it's very similar to the other Power 5 conferences, that if a team is unable to participate in a game due to an outbreak amongst their team, they will be given a loss in the conference rankings. And that is huge, because let's say a potential heavyweight, like an Alabama, an LSU, an Ohio State, an Oregon, let's say they get one loss on the field, or maybe they're undefeated, but because they have a mini outbreak within their program, they could be given a loss officially on the stat sheet. And how is that going to be treated by the playoff committee? Time will tell. So we have that moving forward. Now, the only disparity between what the SEC has said and the other power conferences, well, other than the Big Ten, the Big Ten has said in this circumstance, if both teams are unable to participate, let's say Team A and Team B both have outbreaks in their program and can't field a competitive full team, then they will be considered a no contest. Now, the SEC has said, if both teams can't participate, they will both be given a loss in the conference rankings, or conference standings, excuse me. So, very similar, just slightly different when it comes down to if both teams can't participate. And this is huge moving forward. I've been waiting on this. A couple weeks ago, other conferences did state publicly what their policies would be. But now that we know, I can share with you moving forward. And we'll keep our eyes on this. Hopefully our games won't be taken away from us, but time will tell. But I am a realist, and I do anticipate not every team being affected by this, but at least every conference will be affected, is what I believe. So that wraps up storylines and headlines for today. Next, let's move into our Week 0 review, because we did have 5 games over the weekend. Let me take a quick swig. All right. So 3 games that I did mention on last week's episode, I'm going to circle back to them right now and let you know what I saw, what I think. First of all, UCLA. UCLA looked very impressive at home against Hawaii. I believe the final score was 44-10. Looked dominating as far as on the ground game. Their rushing attack took care of business. And I did anticipate them winning. I mean, that's not why I'm mentioning that. That itself is not a shock. But it's going to go a long way. Chip Kelly is absolutely on the hot seat, the coach at UCLA. And one of the marquee games this Saturday night, or Saturday period, for Week 1 is LSU, Coach Orgeron, go Tigers. They travel to UCLA to play in the Rose Bowl. So both of these programs need a big-time win, especially the Pac-12. They need that signature win. They will have a few other opportunities during the non-conference portion of the season. But this would go a long way to put out some of the fire under Chip Kelly's seat. So UCLA now has a tune-up game under their belt, and what coaches say, I don't know. I just am quoting what I've heard from several coaches, that you make your most improvement from week 1 to week 2. So they will be primed and ready to take on mighty LSU. That game is a part of our picks that will happen later this episode. So stay tuned and see who Charlie and I believe is going to win that pivotal matchup. Second game that I want to mention is the San Jose State Spartans. The Spartans took care of business, as I anticipated they would, against FCS foe Southern Utah. But the thing that we need to remember, and I did mention this last week, this is the defending Mountain West champions. They were undefeated during the regular season. Their bowl game, they had a lot of opt-outs for the NFL, did lose that game, but they have a ton of that production back. And they now also have a so-called tune-up game under their belt, so they are primed and ready for their big week 1 matchup. They travel to USC to play the Trojans in the Coliseum. USC has big-time expectations this season. Clay Helton also on the hot seat. So we will see how this game plays out. San Jose State will be locked and loaded and up to the task to go in there and potentially pull off a victory. Now, unfortunately, that game did not make our picks list this week, but we will definitely talk about that during next week's first episode on the weekend review, especially if San Jose State does pull off that upset. Now, the third game, the marquee game of week 0, Nebraska at Illinois. And my, oh my, where do we begin with this? There is so many things that I could say, where I could begin. Lions and tigers and bears, oh my, so much took place during this game. I'm going to start with the positive side of this. And I have to go ahead, excuse me for 1 second while I go ahead and... I told you last week to take Illinois. I picked them to win convincingly, even though the scoreboard maybe wouldn't show it by, 2 or 3 touchdowns. The scoreboard would show it being much closer than it actually was. And that is exactly what happened. And also, I've said in the previous episodes that I think the Brett Bielema hire at Illinois was an absolute slam dunk, Dominique style. I think that was hands down the best hire in the offseason. Some of you listened, some of you didn't. And I also predicted during episode 2, the crystal ball, that I believe Illinois will get to 6 wins to make bowl eligibility, which if that happens, that would be a monumental accomplishment for this program and Coach Brett Bielema. Let's not remember, the last time that we saw Brett Bielema as the head coach of a Division I football team was Black Friday 2017. I remember watching this game. It was a huge game here locally because Missouri was playing at Arkansas. Missouri did pull off the victory, and the rumors were there about Brett Bielema being on the hot seat. They did lose that game, and before he could even get off the field, people, he was informed, oh, by the way, you're fired, adios, hit the road, Jack, don't come back no more. So they couldn't even give him the chance to address his team before he heard the official news. So what a great comeback for Coach Brett Bielema. It has to be a very, very satisfying victory. Well done. And I expect good things from Coach Brett Bielema moving forward. I don't anticipate them being a power player in the Big Ten West this season, but down the road, it bodes very well for Illinois. And I'm very happy for the fans. It's good to see that this team, this program has a potential pulse, and hopefully they have an identity moving forward. So that is the good. I'm very happy for the Illinois program and for Coach Brett Bielema. And I also told y'all, if you were betting people, Vegas pegged Illinois for only 3.5 wins. So picking up a unexpected victory out of the gate definitely helps you collect some money. If you end up taking my advice, just remember, I am your agent. I'm not your manager. You know, I was informed of this via Jackie Brown, that being your agent, 10% is my cut. So feel free to send it my way. I prefer straight cash, homie, no check. Now the bad, and my oh my, lions and tigers and bears, oh my. I am going to start off with this, but this is going to lead into our brand new segment, Atonement. Nebraska. They came in as a 7-point favorite. When you look at the rosters of these two programs, absolutely Nebraska has more talent. Even though they have been a little down and out, they really haven't taken traction during the Scott Frost era, but still, they have recruited very well. 7-point favorite, on the road, more talent, and a multi-year starting quarterback. And they were never, ever in the game. And to make matters worse, late in the first quarters, the vast majority of the game, Brandon Peters, Illinois' starting quarterback, was knocked out of the game and did not return. So Illinois took care of business with a backup quarterback for basically the entire game. Things are not looking good, even worse now in Lincoln. In years past, and I've already shared via my crystal ball predictions, I don't anticipate Scott Frost being in place at a year from now during kickoff week 2022. But in years past, a lot of the teams that played week 0 were given week 1 off because they had travel. In years past, there would be games played overseas, for example, and with jet lag, the analytics of traveling across the pond, they were giving week 1 off. Fortunately for Nebraska, they do have a game this weekend against Fordham, and they will win that game. That, quite frankly, if they had week 1 off, so 2 weeks before their next game, I believe that they would have actually pulled the trigger and fired Scott Frost by Monday morning. That's just what I think would have happened. We'll never know, but it would not have been an absolute shock or surprise. So let's go into more specifically why that was such a poor showing for Nebraska, or what really went wrong. I already mentioned how it played out. The final score was 30-22, but there is more that needs to be discussed. And this is into our next segment, the premiere, dun 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 dun, dun 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 dun, dun 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 dun, our premiere segment of Atonement. I need to get a little more serious here for this segment, and this will look very familiar to you HBO fans. Nebraska, Coach Scott Frost, you have been brought here before the black and gold family and the gods, both the old and the new. For before your sins can be forgiven, you must make your walk of atonement. Nebraska team, special teams specifically, 3 major gaffes. Not only did you miss 1, but 2 extra points, which could have been pivotal in the overall outcome. You also fielded a punt at your 1-yard line, moving backwards into your own end zone. And then to avoid being tackled, you simply threw the ball out of bounds. These are things that you must answer for and must be better coached. So special teams for Nebraska, shame, shame, shame. Next, Nebraska team penalties. Very untimely, undisciplined penalties, especially at the pivotal moment when it looked like momentum had come your way. It was 9-2, and during this play, Illinois threw an interception but it ended up being negated due to not one, but two personal foul penalties. One for roughing the passer, also with a taunting by the same player. It would have given you possession right around midfield, and you could have potentially increased your lead going into halftime. Instead, Illinois ball, 30 yards added from the line of scrimmage due to the penalties, and they end up taking it into the end zone to tie it up 9-9, and at that point, you never stood a chance to win this game. So, penalties, lack of discipline, situational awareness, you must make better decisions, shore it up. Shame, shame, shame. Nebraska team quarterback, Adrian Martinez. You are a third 4-year starter now. You must take care of the football. Yet again, you turn the ball over at a pivotal moment, 9-9, late in the second quarter. If I remember right, 2.5 minutes to go. You fumble, and then it results in a pick six. Illinois leads at the half, 16-9. You must take care of the ball, and also you missed several wide open receivers that could have made a huge difference in the outcome of this game for possession and points. You left points and opportunities on the field. You must make better decisions and take care of the ball. So for you, quarterback Nebraska, shame, shame, shame. Lastly, Coach Scott Frost. After Saturday's loss, you now have a record of 12-21 at Nebraska. Your time in Lincoln is short. You will be replaced. But worse, not only did it seem like your players were not properly coached or disciplined during this game, you had openly admitted that during your press conference post-game about this is the same movie that we've seen time and time again, only once again shoring up and proving the point that these things continue to happen and they have plagued you for the last 3 seasons. There is no sort of improvement, but also the thing that struck us down here is during your press conference, you gave examples of the special teams gaffes, of the turnovers by your quarterback, but never once, not once, and I ask all of you, the Black and Gold family, watch and listen, never once, Coach Frost, did you take any sort of responsibility. You never put that on yourself or your coaching staff. And that has happened time and time again. It must stop. Coach Scott Frost, moving forward, shore it up, take blame, take accountability, have your boys perform. Coach, again, best of luck to you. Coach Scott Frost, shame, shame, shame. That wraps up our atonement segment. And hopefully we will get to do that every week during our weekend review show, but only if a potential team, player, or coach presents the opportunity. And like I said, Nebraska absolutely presented the opportunity for this segment to come to you a week earlier than expected. Whew, that was fun. If you haven't seen Game of Thrones, you need to see it. That's all I'm going to say. Our next topic, and this is now we get into our predictions, and everything has led to this moment. This is history, people. Now, Charlie and I have never claimed to be experts. We aren't an expert like those at the playoff committee, the people who basically choose who the playoff participants will be, the 13 experts. We are not. But we do know a thing or two about this game. So you may want to stay with us. Now, some of these you can highly disagree with, and that is your right. You can call us crazy, we're out of our trees. You can call us dirty SOBs. Just please do that on your own time. Do not comment and leave those things for me. But feel free, leave your comments based on the predictions, whether it's for conference predictions, Heisman predictions, even the Pick'em segment coming up soon, but especially for the playoff predictions, which we'll get to here shortly. So this is how we see the Power 5 conferences shaking up this season. Last week, I did share with you the potential favorites, but also some potential sleeper surprise teams, and I broke down the schedules, and all of those lead to the picks today. So let's start off. In the ACC, the Atlantic Coast Conference, lately this has been absolutely dominated by Clemson. So let's start in their division, the Atlantic. Both Charlie and I believe Clemson will yet again come on top. Now, I anticipate they will get a conference loss somewhere on their schedule, whether it's NC State, Boston College. They may end up even losing in the ACC title game, but I do anticipate at least one loss from them this year. They will be solid. Clemson will be Clemson, but they may not be the dominant Clemson teams of the past. Now, the Coastal Division. The Coastal, this is where we have our first disagreement. Charlie believes that Miami, the U, will come out on top, and this may end up being true. Miami, as I stated last week, has a lot of firepower back, especially on the offensive side, but their defense is quick. They get after it. I absolutely can see Miami winning the Coastal Division, but I have North Carolina coming out of that division because I think they have just as much offensive firepower. Remember, I do believe that Sam Howell, quarterback of North Carolina, will be a Heisman finalist. And the big reason why I believe they beat Miami is because they host Miami in Chapel Hill. And I believe that game will be for the Coastal Division. So in the ACC title game, Charlie has Clemson versus Miami. I have Clemson versus North Carolina. Late in the season, Clemson will be a better team. A name to be made aware of. Even though he did announce his presence last year, he looked very good in the Notre Dame game when Trevor Lawrence was out with COVID, is DJ Uiagalelei, the quarterback, and that is a mouthful, the quarterback for Clemson. I think later in the year, there will be improvement. They also are replacing Travis Etienne, their everything running back. But late in the season, betting against Brett Venables and his defense, how he schemes in a high-profile winner-take-all kind of game, it is tough for me not to pick Clemson. I have Clemson winning, and so does Charlie. So Clemson, via us, myself, and Charlie, Clemson wins the ACC. Unanimous. Let's move on to the Big 12. And I absolutely love this conference this year. I am so into this conference race. All of you know how big I am on Iowa State, and Charlie has also expressed his high expectations and what he believes this team can accomplish this year. Now, the Big 12 does not have divisions. They play everybody. So we will pick the top two teams that will meet in the Big 12 title game. Both Charlie and I, we have Oklahoma meeting Iowa State. And Oklahoma, I think, will go undefeated during conference play, so they will be the 1 seed. And Iowa State, I think, will lose to Oklahoma late in the year. So I believe this could only be 2 weeks later. These teams could meet again. They play November 20th. I'd have to check the dates to see when championship weekend is, but I believe it's only 2 weeks later they would meet again. This time, though, redemption for the Cyclones. Both Charlie and I believe, and this is unanimous, Iowa State comes out on top in the rematch against Oklahoma. So the Big 12, unanimously between Charlie and I, Cyclones of Iowa State. Next, let's move on to the Pac-12 conference. And the Pac-12 is another conference that I am going to be paying so much attention to. I think it is the deepest conference. It will be the most competitive. The only problem is, here in the Central Time Zone, when they kick off at 9 p.m., by 10, 11 o'clock at night, I'm starting to get a little bit tired. But I need to make sure this year to stay awake. Get the coffee brewing, get the caffeine going. I need to watch. This is must-see TV this year. So let's start off in the Pac-12 North. Charlie has the Oregon Ducks coming out on top. Once again, a very safe bet. They are the highest ranked Pac-12 team in this week's AP poll. He has Oregon out of the North. Me, I have the Washington Huskies coming out on top because I believe they have a softer conference schedule than Oregon does, and they host Oregon. So that game will be winner take all for the North. So I have Washington, Charlie has Oregon. Now the South. And I've already said this, I will say it again. No blasphemy intended to the mighty SEC or the Big Ten, more specifically the SEC West and Big Ten East. This will be the most daunting, competitive division in all of college football this season. 4 teams could potentially come out on top. Charlie likes USC to come out on top. Once again, safe bet. Last week's episode, I went through the schedule breakdowns. USC has the easiest path to the Pac-12 title game. But me, I've already shared with you, I am so high on this Utah Utes team. The 2 Utes, I like Utah out of the South. The Pac-12 title game. Once again, we are at odds. Charlie has Oregon beating USC. I have Utah beating Washington. So we will see what plays out in the Pac-12. Now let's move on to our home conferences. Being the gentleman that I am, I will go through the SEC for Charlie, the black and gold of Missouri. So let's go ahead and look at the SEC, how we see it playing out. Now the SEC East, Missouri's division, we both like Georgia. And quite frankly, I am so high on this Georgia team. I quite frankly think this division will basically be the Georgia Invitational. I do not see them taking a loss. They don't play LSU, Alabama, or A&M from the other side of the SEC. I believe they will run the table and go undefeated in the regular season. So we both have Georgia winning the East. The West, it's status quo. Until somebody can consistently beat them, it is hard to take anybody but Alabama. Now, I will say this from my perspective. Alabama did lose a lot, but they're Alabama. They're plug and play. I mean, they are not a developmental program like my Hawkeyes, like Missouri is, that they have 4- and 5-star recruits on tap, just waiting in the wings. I believe Alabama, because they are replacing quarterback and some other major contributors, I believe they will take a loss in the regular season at some point. You'll have to wait and see what my picks. I've already said, I believe that A&M could maybe defeat them. I do believe Nick Saban will take a loss to a former assistant this year, whether it's Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, Jimbo Fisher there at A&M. I do believe that he will take a loss in the regular season. So they will come into the SEC title game with 1 loss, is my prediction. So the SEC title game. Once again, we disagree on this, and I love this. Later on, hopefully I can hold this over Charlie like a little, the puppet master and say, I went public and look, you didn't believe me. Charlie likes Georgia to beat Alabama. Once again, I could see it happening. Georgia has the horses, and they've been so close to beating Bama in the past that maybe Kirby Smart and his crew are due for a victory over mighty Alabama. But me, I have to take Alabama. Once again, until someone can consistently beat them, until the wheels start to fall off, they will not lose that kind of a game. So I like Alabama to win the SEC. Now let's move on to the Big Ten, my conference. And let's start with the Big Ten East. The talent gap at Ohio State is still so much more compared to anybody else in the entire Big Ten galaxy. You cannot pick against Ohio State to win, even though they are replacing key contributors. Again, their starting quarterbacks are very unproven. They have to replace Justin Fields, who's killing it with the Bears. We expect a good season from him when he gets the nod to start. But it's impossible for either one of us to pick against Ohio State. Charlie and I both have Ohio State winning the East. Now, I will further wax poetically and add to this. Just like Alabama, because Ohio State is young, I do believe they will pick up a conference loss someplace, probably early in the season. And I say that because stay tuned. They do open up Thursday night, tomorrow, at Minnesota. I may or may not pick Minnesota and the Gophers to row the boat and upset the Buckeyes. Wait and see. But I do believe Ohio State will take a loss in conference at some point, or maybe potentially to Oregon next week, which is the marquee game next week. Oregon travels to Columbus, a clash of the Titans. So we will see next week how that plays out. The title game. The Big Ten West Division, where Iowa is. I think Iowa, just like Charlie, he believes Iowa can challenge, but we both agree that Wisconsin will win this division. And I am so high on this Wisconsin team. It pains me to say that. I have no ill will for the Badgers. They just own us. They are a better program than Iowa is. But usually in years past, I have been the one who has thought this team is so overrated. This year, I think they are underrated. Even though they are highly ranked, they're on everybody's radar. I really like this Wisconsin team. And maybe they upset Ohio State in the title game. But Charlie and I both like Wisconsin out of the Big Ten West. The Big Ten title game, once again, Wisconsin, I think, will be game if they play the way I believe they can, and they will show us during the season. But as of right now, it's hard to pick against Ohio State. Charlie and I both have Ohio State winning the Big Ten Conference. So that is how we see the Power 5 conferences playing out during the season. Now, I also want to share with you a few of the non-Power 5 teams that you need to be in the know about. And some of these, let's start with the non-Power 5 teams that are already on the radar. Most of these we've already talked about, or they find themselves ranked right now. So teams on the radar. Cincinnati. Cincinnati last year took Georgia to the wire in the bowl game. They're ranked inside the top 10. They are the alpha dog right now of the non-Power 5. This year, their schedule is a little bit more challenging. They play both Indiana and mighty Notre Dame. And we will see how those games play out. But if they are able to win those games and do well in their conference, the American Athletic, they will find themselves right there on the precipice, knocking on tick, 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 the playoff door. Another one is Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina was one of Charlie's most underrated teams, even though they are ranked in the poll currently. They bring back a lot last year. They only lost one game, so they are definitely a team you need to be made aware of out of the Sun Belt. Now the other team, and this is my favorite team, the team that I expect the most out of from the non-Power 5 is the Ragin' Cajuns of Louisiana. I love that mascot name. And they have a huge opening game in Austin at Texas. Now, last year, Louisiana went on the road and knocked off Iowa State, a team that you know I love this year. They knocked them off in Ames. Can they replicate that and knock off the mighty Longhorns with Coach Steve Sarkisian's debut? Wait and see for the pick segment coming soon. Now, some of the off-the-radar teams that bring back a lot of production that I definitely see making noise in their conferences or knocking off a couple of good Power 5 teams in the non-conference portion of the schedule. Now, from the American Athletic, I've already mentioned Cincinnati, but UCF with Gus Malzahn, they have a lot of pieces in place to make some noise. Also, SMU. SMU brings back a lot of production. I think this year that the Stangs will definitely have a very good season in the American Athletic. So wait to see what UCF and SMU can do out of the American Athletic. Next, let's look at the Mountain West Conference. I've already told you that I expect good things from the Spartans of San Jose State, but also another team to watch from the Mountain West is Nevada. Normally, Boise State would be here, but under a new coach, I think there might be a little bit of growing pains. And plus, they open up this week at UCF, and I'll give you my picks on that game shortly. But I also like Nevada to make some noise in the Mountain West. Now, Conference USA, I think there are some very excellent teams from Conference USA that could make a little bit of noise, that could grab some headlines. I do like Marshall, the Thundering Herd. We are Marshall. They bring back a lot, and let's see what they do. They actually open up with Navy, and that is on our pick segment, so we'll get to that here soon as well. I also like UAB, the Blazers, Alabama Birmingham. They have been nothing but consistent since they made the jump to Division I. I expect good things from UAB. And also, the University of Texas, San Antonio, the Utes Roadrunners, another great mascot. And this is something that we will pay a lot of attention to because they do play at Illinois in a couple of weeks, and they bring back a game changer and running back who led the nation last year. I believe he was second in rushing yards last season. We'll look at that game more in week 3 when the game happens. Now, out of the MAC, the Mid-American Conference, don't sleep on the MAC. And these teams have beaten Iowa so many times in the past, I never take them lightly. But I like 3 teams from the MAC to make a little bit of noise. I like Western Michigan, which they open up this weekend at the Big House in Ann Arbor against the Winged Helmets, the Go Blue, the Booster Club, yada, yada, yada of Michigan. I don't expect them to pull that upset, but we'll see just how good this Western Michigan team is, but also where is Michigan at? That'll be a very telling game. Also, I like Ball State. I like Ball State. They have a lot returning, and they do have a couple of premier non-conference games, and we'll look at those when they come up. And the Ohio Bobcats. Frank Solich, who was the former coach at Nebraska, another one they fired for winning 9 games every season, just retired in the offseason due to some health issues. Only roughly about a month, maybe a month and a half ago, a very late scratch, did retire. They bring back a ton of production. I expect big things from the Bobcats of Ohio. Now, lastly, to wrap up our D1 predictions and previews, let's talk about some independents that you need to be made aware of. Everybody knows mighty Notre Dame. But if you recall, I believe they were one of my 2 overrated teams. Only having 3 returning starters back on offense, that is a problem. But they have the talent, they will rebound, but they won't have a season like last season. They will have a few losses when the smoke clears. So Notre Dame, they'll have a solid season, but maybe not the season that makes a lot of Notre Dame fans happy. But let's keep the expectations within reason. Next one, I am very high on the Liberty Flames. And this was our team that both myself and Charlie believe should have been ranked. They only had 1 loss last season to a very solid, very good NC State team. And they will have so much back. I do believe within a matter of weeks they will crack the rankings and be ranked once again where they should be. Now, one of my favorites in BYU, they're going to have a tough season. They went 11-1 last year, a banner year for them. They lose so much production, especially from in first-round draft pick Zach Wilson, and also Lisa Wilson's no longer in the stands. So they will have a very tough season. Their schedule is much more daunting. I think it'll be difficult for them to even get bowl eligibility. But we'll see what the year plays out for the Cougars. Now, the last independent is I have to mention Army. We love the academies. We have to mention them when we can. This team won 9 games last year, running the triple option. I do expect that they will have a lot of wins again this season. Wait and see what plays out with the Army Black Knights. So that, my friends, ladies and gentlemen, family of the black and gold, is how we see the conferences playing out and also non-Power 5 and independents. Now, let's move into our next topic. We have our first Pick 'em Up right now. Each and every week, I'll pick 15 games. Most of them you'll know, and some are kind of off the cuff, off the radar kind of games that Charlie and I will pick. And what we've decided to do is we've set the bar at 70%. Charlie and I, because we're just picking these games straight up, at season's end, we would like to be over 70%, or at least 70%. Let me backtrack on that. But my expectations for myself, I would prefer to be at 75%. So we'll archive these, we'll keep track, and also at the end of the season, we're going to get a traveling trophy made, but each week we will hold bragging rights over the other. So we'll see what plays out this season with our picks. So week 1 picks. I am so excited. I get so excited and fired up knowing that football is on deck. That starting tonight, today's Wednesday, September 1st, we have 6 days of football. We have a game tonight, game Thursday nights. We have some games Friday night. We have games all day Saturday. We have a Sunday night game, and we have a Monday night game. It's the most wonderful time of the year. The only thing that can really rival this time of year, the kickoff time, is New Year's Day with the Bulls, but that always is bittersweet because that does signify that the majority of teams, that their years are done. So we love kickoff week, and I am so excited to have football back. Excuse me one sec while I get a little swig. So let's move into our week 1 picks. First game up, Thursday night, Boise State travels to UCF. Boise State leaves the blue turf, the Smurf turf, and yes, if you don't believe me, look into it. It's very hard on your eyes, though. So they will travel to UCF. Charlie and I both believe, due to traveling cross country and it's going to be potentially hot in Central Florida, a lot of humidity, we both like UCF to win. Gus Malzahn gets his first victory in his opener at the helm of the Knights. UCF wins. Next game. Boy, oh boy, this is tough. Especially earlier this episode, I mentioned that I believe Ohio State will take a loss to somebody during the regular season. Also Thursday night, Ohio State travels to the Twin Cities to play Minnesota. My boy PJ Fleck looking for a bounce back year. This is a tough decision for me. I might even call an audible, check it right now and change my pick. I am on the verge. When you look at these two teams on paper, if you just look at starters, experience, and games, Minnesota is the better team. But now, back to life, back to reality. You cannot overlook the talent gap of Ohio State. I really want to pick Minnesota in this game, also because there are going to be fans back in the seats. Remember, last year, in the Big Ten footprint, we did not have fans in the stands. There's only so much you can replicate with crowd noise being pumped in. So that'll give another potential edge to Minnesota, who I do believe right now on paper is the better team. But I also want to be right. This game, Charlie and I both have Ohio State winning, but it is going to be a close game. Next week, during the weekend review, don't be surprised if we're talking about Minnesota pulling the upset. Next game, Friday night, North Carolina, who I believe is going to win the ACC Coastal, as I shared with you earlier. They travel to Virginia Tech. Charlie and I both like North Carolina. VTech has some problems. Justin Fuente, I think, is on his way out. We both like North Carolina soundly to win this game Friday night. Saturday games. One of the early kickoffs, Stanford, the Cardinal, the Nerds travel to the Little Big Apple, to K-State, the house that Coach Snyder built. Now, shout out to the Cardinal. Now, they're not the Cardinals, people. They are one of very few mascots who are singular, not plural. Also along with the one that I can name right now, the Golden Hurricane, not Hurricanes, of Tulsa. So the Cardinal travel to the Wildcats. Stanford, I think, is also in for a very rough season. They lose a lot. I think getting to bowl eligibility is going to be a task for them. Charlie and I both like K-State, who's very physical, has an identity at home. Kansas State wins. Next one, the premier game of the Big Ten games for 11 o'clock kickoff. And now I'll say it again, the Big Ten is on full display during week 1, folks. It doesn't get any better than the Big Ten Conference. That's not a shot at the SEC, but just give me this 1 week to revel in all eyes on me, like Tupac, to revel and enjoy the spotlight. The games out of the gate in the Big Ten this year are awesome. They are on full display. They are on a pedestal. Early game, Penn State travels to Wisconsin. Both are ranked. Penn State's looking for a bounce back year. They did rattle off 4 straight wins last year after starting 0-5. But I think Wisconsin is just too much for them. Charlie and I both have Wisconsin winning in Madison. They'll be jumping around well after the fourth quarter to celebrate postgame. Wisconsin beats Penn State. Next game, West Virginia. Remember last week I did mention I think West Virginia has the potential to be a sleeper team in the Big 12. West Virginia, the Mountaineers traveled to Maryland and Mike Locksley. Maryland last year did show a little bit of improvement, but I think West Virginia has too much. Charlie and I both are picking West Virginia over Maryland. Next pick, we have our first. Now, this is what we're going to do. Every week during Pick'em, we're going to give a shout out to 3 specific games. We're always going to highlight the marquee game of the week, which this week it definitely is Georgia and Clemson. We're always going to give a shout out to this one, which is we're always going to have at least one academy team highlighted every year. So this is our academy game of the week. Marshall, who I just mentioned, expect good things out of them. They have a good team coming back. They travel to Navy and the triple option. I think the triple option, it's tough. Even though they've had all off season to prepare for it, has Marshall, I think Navy runs it to a T to perfection. Both Charlie and I, we pick Navy, go midshipmen, get it done. Navy wins in a close game. Next game, Alabama and Miami. Now, this game sounds like it's going to be very competitive, and I believe it will be. Now, remember, Charlie has Miami winning the Coastal Division of the ACC. I think this will be a close game, 2, maybe 3 quarters, but late in the game, I think Alabama does pull away and they do what they do. We both have Alabama winning. Next game, and this is our first disagreement for picks this week. Louisiana, who we just talked about, travels to Texas. I love the Raging Cajuns. I think they're locked and loaded, primed. They have their key contributors back. They won at Iowa State last year. Texas has a lot of questions, especially at quarterback, and their defense. Last year, scoring was not the problem for them, but they could not get off the field defensively. Charlie has Texas winning. I've got Louisiana. Go Raging Cajuns. Get it done. I've got the Cajuns winning at Texas. Next game, big time. We have another disagreement. LSU traveling to UCLA. LSU looking for a bounce back season, but I think there is too much going on against them, traveling cross country, and earlier this week due to Hurricane Ida, they were misplaced. They had to relocate to Houston, so that could be a potential distraction. And maybe some of those players are still in limbo, wondering if their family or friends are still okay. There is still thousands and thousands of people who don't have power. So I think going into it, and also UCLA having that tune-up game under their belt, I like UCLA to beat Go Tigers and Coach Orgeron and LSU. Charlie has the Tigers winning in Pasadena. So we'll see. Next game. This is a Monday night game. Actually, it's Sunday night game. Excuse me. Sunday night. Notre Dame travels to Florida State. Florida State coming off a up and down season, like the elevator business. Once again, bad dad joke. And Notre Dame, I believe, overrated. Open up on the road. And yet again, we have another disagreement, Charlie and I. Charlie likes Notre Dame to win. I like Florida State. Mackenzie Milton, who transferred in, former stud at UCF. I think he runs that offense well. And also they'll be packed. They'll be primed. I'm sure there'll be some sort of dedication to the late Coach Bobby Bowden, who we mentioned a few episodes ago. I think FSU, Florida State gets it done. Now let's move on to our two teams. Let's start with Missouri. Central Michigan travels to Columbia to take on Mizzou. This Central Michigan team, the Chippewas, they bring a lot back, a lot of experience, and also coached by Jim McElwain. If that name is familiar to you, it should be. He did have a very unsuccessful run as Florida coach. He was dismissed, but he does know the SEC. But even though they do bring back a lot, I do expect this game to be close at the half, and I say close within 17 points. But in the second half, Mizzou starts to find their rhythm, which they do need to. They have a tough Week 2 matchup at Kentucky. That's going to be a big-time game for us to discuss, for me to discuss next week, because I don't believe Charlie will be back yet. But I think Mizzou does get it done. They need to get tougher on the defensive line. I think Mizzou strolls to a victory late in the game. We both like Missouri to get it done. The next game, Indiana at my Hawkeyes. And wow, what a game. What a game out of the gate. Once again, the Big Ten on full display this week. Indiana definitely has the horses to compete with Iowa. They have big primetime players back. But I think the edge goes to the home crowd at Kinnick Stadium. We have been without fans for, I believe it's 21 months. We will be ready and waiting for them. Last year, Indiana only had one loss, a very close game at Ohio State, but they didn't have to worry about the noise. The environment will be off the hook. I expect it loud and consistent throughout, and I think the Iowa defense can contain their offense. And I think what will be the deciding factor will be the crowd. I believe Indiana will feel like the residents of Tokyo, Japan. They'll stroll in, they're enjoying their morning, enjoying their afternoon. And then off in the distance, people are pointing, they're screaming, they're running around. It'll be like seeing Godzilla rise out of the Tokyo Bay. We both like Iowa at home to beat Indiana in a very close game. I think this will be the best game, most competitive game in the Big Ten in Week 1. But we both like Iowa, the Hawkeyes, IOWA, to get it done. Now, our second, another spotlight game. This is what we're going to have. Each and every week, we are also going to spotlight the FCS game of the week. And FCS is a division below FBS Division 1, but there are still excellent teams at the FCS level. Now, this week, a lot of them, it's not really good on good. If there was a top 5, top 10 matchup at the FCS ranks, we would definitely pick that. But this week, we have the South Dakota State, the Jackrabbits, out of the Missouri Valley. Don't sleep on the Valley. I am very familiar with, most of you are. The Valley plays great football at the FCS level. They travel to Colorado State in Colorado Springs, the Elevation, to take on the Rams of Colorado State. Now, last year, the Jackrabbits were the runners-up. They made it to the FCS title game, but lost to Sam Houston. It was a great game. I loved watching it. Colorado State brings back a lot at Elevation. Hopefully I'm wrong about this, because I do always root for the little guy, the underdog. But I have Colorado State beating the Jackrabbits. Charlie likes South Dakota State to win. So we have another disagreement. And hopefully I'm wrong about that one. I am rooting for the Jackrabbits, but I just don't want to be wrong. Now, here it is. Dun, 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 the marquee game of the week. The next one that we are going to highlight. Remember, every week we'll highlight at least one academy team, FCS team, and the marquee game of the week. This week, Georgia and Clemson meet up in a gargantuan matchup and bout. I think this absolutely is not only the non-conference game of the year, but it might be the game of the year, because the outcome of this is absolutely going to affect playoff participants, and you'll see that here in a little bit when I unveil to you what our playoff predictions are, what teams make the 4-team playoff. UGA has huge expectations, so does Clemson. It is absolutely difficult to root and pick against Clemson with what they've done. I believe they are favored, I think by 2.5, 3 points as of this morning via Vegas. But as I stated a little while ago, I believe Georgia will get it done. They have a quarterback who can move them up and down the field. Years past, when Georgia has been good, you know what you're going to get. You have a solid defense. You have a stable of running backs in the backfield. Their Achilles heel is they've never had a quarterback that can move them up and down the field potentially. JT Daniels, who is another one of my Heisman finalists, I think he can do that. And I think ultimately Georgia wins. And Charlie also likes Georgia to get it done over Clemson. But it is going to be a must-see TV kind of game. So celebrate, enjoy it. So that's our Week 1 picks. Feel free, comment, let us know what you think, call us crazy, say, hey, I love that pick, or I don't like that. Just remember, keep the comments adult-like. Let's have respect, and can't we all just get along? That's what we want. Feel free. We are doing this to share our passion and love of college football with you. Subscribe, share, let us know how we're doing. The more feedback we get, the better. We will absolutely share your feedback, comments, and questions on the air with the entire family. So that was our Week 1 picks. And the reason why I wanted to do those first before giving you the Heisman Trophy winner, and also our playoff predictions, is because you can see even in Week 1 how this is going to affect what we believe is going to shake out for the playoff. But before we do that, next topic, let's go ahead and unveil to you our Heisman Trophy winner. If you recall, to recap, let me share with you our finalists. Charlie, his finalists were JT Daniels, quarterback from Georgia. He also liked running back Breece Hall from Iowa State, and Spencer Rattler, quarterback from Oklahoma. Me, I also had those exact same 3, but I also believe that quarterback Sam Howell from North Carolina would be a Heisman finalist. If you watched, or you can go back, my bold predictions, my crystal ball segments and prediction was this year, I anticipate a quarterback will not win the Heisman Trophy. So by default, I have running back Breece Hall from Iowa State taking home the Heisman Trophy. And also, we are in unanimous agreement. Charlie also kind of let it be known kind of a spoiler alert, if you watch our previous episodes, he did also refer to this, but he also likes running back Breece Hall to win the Heisman Trophy. So we'll see if we're right or wrong. The season will play itself out. So Breece Hall, bring it home. I want to be right. And I am putting everything on the line for all of you. Publicly, in the eyes of the family, my reputation hangs in the balance. But just to remind you, who picked Illinois last week? Who said Brett Bielema was a great hire at Illinois? That's right. This guy right here. So we'll see how it all plays out. Now, dun 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 dun, our last topic. I will unveil to you our playoff picks. Now, this is absolutely going to ruffle some feathers. I expect a lot of conversation, and I want that. We both want you to share with us your thoughts. Okay? So let's go into what Charlie has for his playoff participants, his predictions. Looking at Charlie's, it's a very safe bet, but it's probably the safer bet to take compared to who I believe is going to be there. Charlie, in this order, has these 4 teams, and I'll give you the name and their rank. He believes the 1 seed will be Georgia, 2nd seed will be Ohio State, 3rd seed Alabama, 4th seed Clemson. Now, I know what you're thinking. We've seen this before, the same movie, but yet we still buy a ticket for it. Because I believe that each and every year there's only 6 teams that absolutely can make the playoff. And of those 6, 3 out of the 4 will be there, and the 4th is kind of that wild card. Like a couple of years ago, LSU, and before that, Washington making the playoff, and even before that, Michigan State. So the 6 teams, based on their performance, their prestige, and how they recruit, these are the 6 teams that I believe can make the playoff every year, and 3 out of the 6 will. They are Clemson, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Alabama, Georgia, Oklahoma. And right there, Charlie has 4 of those 6. And like I said, that's safe. It's a good bet. And more than likely, it will be something following that formula. But I do not think it will be. As you watched, once again, in episode 2, I predicted, one of my crystal ball bold predictions was, this year, during conference championship week, we will have multiple upsets that will shake up the playoff invitees and the participants. So, let me share with you first, going into championship week, I'm going to share with you the 4 teams I have, and actually I'm going to give you the top 6. The first 4, then the first 2 out, going into championship week at the end of the regular season. Going in, at the end of the regular season, in this order, I have Georgia, the 1 seed, Oklahoma, number 2, Ohio State, number 3, Alabama, number 4. Now, before I share with you my first 2 out, I think there will be so much separation potentially from those first 3. I think Georgia and Oklahoma will absolutely be undefeated. They will go regular season with a donut in the loss column, unless COVID issues arise or by some unknown, huge, big, monumental upset, which could happen. That's why we play the games. That is why you play the games. I think Ohio State will get a loss, or they could potentially lose in the Big Ten title game. I think Wisconsin is game. I think they could potentially do that. But I think via my predictions, and that's why it was hard for me to pick against Minnesota to beat them tomorrow night, but it wouldn't surprise me. But I think Ohio State is the 3 seed with 1 loss. Alabama is the 4 seed also with 1 loss. I do believe they will lose one of their games in the division, whether it be A&M, Ole Miss, or LSU. And I have Iowa State is my first team out. Iowa State, I think, will only have the one loss, and that'll be to Oklahoma late in the season. But I also think they will be there because of their non-conference victory over Iowa. I already predicted that they would beat Iowa in week 2, and hopefully that'll go a long way. Hopefully Iowa is a decent team, a solid team, maybe win the West or be a game behind Wisconsin. So that will absolutely enhance their profile, their resume. So I think Iowa State is the first team out. And then I think Clemson is the second team out, the 6th spot at the end of the regular season. I do believe they will have at least 2 losses. I think that I picked Georgia to beat them this Saturday, and I think they will pick up a conference loss, whether it's to NC State, BC, or somebody else. So those are my top 4 going into championship weekend with my first 2 out. Now, this is where it gets crazy, people. This is where it's going to make your head spin. You're spinning around. You're inside the cyclone. But where is the cyclone going to drop our house? Definitely not in Oz. So this is how I see it playing out based on my predictions. My playoff 4 that'll be unveiled. Georgia will still be my 1 seed, followed by Alabama. I think Alabama will beat Georgia in the SEC title game, but I think because of that separation with Georgia, they still will be awarded the 1 seed with 1 loss to Alabama. So 1 seed Georgia, 2 seed Alabama. So Alabama moves up a couple spots from where I see them the week before. Now the 3rd spot. I have Oklahoma moving from 2 down to 3. And here's why. The rematch, I think once again, Oklahoma will have so much separation because they will come into the Big 12 title game undefeated. I like Iowa State to beat them, as I've already shared. So Oklahoma is your 3 spot, your 3rd team in. They drop from 2 to 3. And hopping up the 4 spot in the playoff because they will upset and they will defeat Oklahoma. I like, yes, the Iowa State Cyclones to be the 4 seed in the playoff, and I like them to leapfrog Ohio State. And Ohio State may only have the 1 loss in regular season, or they could lose to Wisconsin. I think Iowa State's profile and that victory over Oklahoma will propel them above the Buckeyes, and I believe, unfortunately, the Big Ten will be left out. The Pac-12, I think, will eliminate themselves because it's going to be such a tough conference that they will cannibalize each other. I think every Pac-12 team will have at least 2 losses, and I think Clemson will be the first team out in the 5 spot, and then you'll have Ohio State fall to the 6. Now, I know what you are thinking. Blair, that is 2 SEC teams, which we've seen that before. They are the only conference to ever get multiple teams into the playoff. But you're saying, Blair, that's 2 Big 12 teams. Yes, that is what I'm saying, people. Call me a loon, whatever you want. But just remember, if I'm right, later on the joke is on you. So that is my playoff. Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma, Iowa State. Mark it down. So it is said, so it shall be written. So it is said, so it shall be done via the 10 Commandments. Woo! There we are. One more time. Ric Flair. Woo! That is it. That is our topics for this episode. Thank you for being with me. God bless all of you. And now let me just wax poetic a little bit. I have to give some love, some shout outs to college football in general. It is back. Enjoy the football this weekend. May we never, ever take it for granted ever again. Enjoy your traditions, the tailgates, the meats, the beverages. Let them flow like wine. Enjoy the marching bands. Enjoy the national anthem. Enjoy the flyovers, the moment your teams run out of the tunnel, to your fight songs. Enjoy everything about it. It is back. It's beautiful because I have shared this with you. It's hard for me to express because I'm not an intelligent guy. I've told you, I'm dumber than a box of sand. How much I enjoy and love this sport. It is a part of my soul. It is needed, I think, for everyone, that we now feel it gives us something to enjoy, something to root for. We all belong. We feel like we are a community. College football is absolutely chicken soup for the soul. Those old books, gotta love them. So this weekend, enjoy everything about college football. As a reminder, please comment, share, smash the subscribe button. Let us know how we're doing. Next week, we will be back with not one, but 2 episodes. I'd say by Tuesday afternoon, you could expect the weekend review. Thursday afternoon, evening, the weekend preview. So for Charlie, I'm Blair Parks. Enjoy the football. Black and Gold Nation. Missouri fans, Iowa fans, remember, ask not what the black and gold can do for you, but what you can do for the black and gold. Enjoy the football. Blessed to everyone. Enjoy yourselves. Until next week, take care. Adios. Enjoy. Bye-bye now.